presentation by Ms. Drake from a proud District 8 school in East Ridge Middle School. And then we have our community superintendent from the North River Learning Community, and Ms. Harper talking about our...
I can't hear him.
Oh, no, I don't think you're...
Yeah, I don't think the mic's... We're good now?
Yeah, no, it is. Try it again.
Because I have the air right here in my ear. I just...
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. So after our meditation and our community superintendents speaking about our Sell Creek Bassmaster National Championships, we'll move down to anything about our presentation, and then into our minutes, and then field trips. Anything in field trips from anyone? And
Somebody had mentioned to me about pulling those. Are we going to pull the field trips, or are we not going to pull the field trips?
we have.
So I guess I would mention just about the JROTC rafting field trips. If you can recall, a couple years ago we started not allowing those trips to happen. We've had a renewed interest in bringing those back up. The reason we were going to pull it is because there were two that were scheduled before the end of August that we've already pushed back. But what this request is asking is basically not to pull these off as individual items going forward, but for this vote on Thursday just to give us your consent to approve these moving forward. Talked to Scott Bennett about this, and his concern is that are we going through a vendor that has liability insurance, that done the training, that's a qualified vendor, and of course JROTC is doing that. So basically we're just asking for that consent on Thursday.
And we do have these in front of us in
Yeah,
your
we have the update on that.
There are a couple on September, Sell Creek and a Red Bank, and then there'll be some more added in the future. But what we're asking for consent on Thursday is for us just to approve those moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Robertson.
So all the other field trips are still on? Because somebody had mentioned to me that might be pulling them. The other field trips that are on the agenda are still okay?
The athletic field trips are,
Okay.
but we kind of halted on any others until after Labor Day.
But everything we have on here is good. Okay. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Nate,
Yeah, Mr. Wayne.
are the kids going to be allowed to take field trips this year? Or do we know what?
Yes, we want to see how the trends are going over the, at least until Labor Day, because of the significant spike and trying to look at our new COVID policies and procedures. But yes, we do anticipate that kids will be able to go on field trips again.
Okay, and there's another thing I know that they usually go on buses. And I did see something in the policy, not the policy, the opt-out form that said that our buses fall under federal. That is not true. So I don't know that we need to fix that.
There actually was a executive order by Governor Lee earlier today that requires that any mask mandate at a K through 12 institution allows an opt-out.
Yeah.
And the opt-out applies to buses, so we'll be making that change.
Okay, well, that's fine. But I mean, we just need to know that our buses do not fall under federal guidelines. I don't know whoever wrote that, but that is not the truth. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Tucker, can
Yeah, Mr.
we just regress just a little bit? And it's
Yeah.
probably a Dr. Parker question. Under recognition of REACH employees, I just want to make sure that my guy's on there.
Is there a name you noticed that is not?
Well, I don't know. Where can I?
Definitely Shane McNeese is.
Okay, I know I've worried Dr. Towns today about making sure that happens.
He's on the list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Nope. I sent them the policy. Send them the policy.
Thank you, Tucker.
No problem. I lost where we were. So moving on past field trips, we will go to bids and contracts. We have repair athletic field irrigation, Simply Mac, Board Membo, and then tornado damage at East Hamilton Field. Any questions on that?
Yeah. I have one.
Yeah, Ms. Smith.
But I was going to, under bids and contracts, no, but Chief under request for approval of the next thing. You want to take that one here?
Yeah, we can go down to that.
Okay, request approval to accept free trial of Packback. I need a little bit more information about that. What is that all about?
So Packback is a trial offer for our schools to participate in. If you'll give me just a moment, I'm going to pull my information that I have on it. We have 10 schools that will be participating. So as we have been navigating work and opportunities to enhance using our computers for student learning, Packback is a program that kids are able to use, and it will give teachers the opportunity to work alongside a student with not only the assignments. We're buying some programs through ESSER, you'll see here, to help us with those upper level math, kids who may have to be at home for learning, kids who may be struggling with keeping up with their work. Teachers can use Packback along with the classes to help kids with remediation opportunities. It's a free program, it's a free trial. It's really got a way that we can focus on AP classes, the dual enrollment, the higher level classes when a kid falls behind. And this was actually something that was brought to our attention by educators that they would like to try for a special subset of kids that it's hard to reach. And so Packback would give us the opportunity to enhance our online work with students that kind of fit a niche that this would give us the opportunity to use. It's free. We don't have to pay anything for it, and the 10 schools opted in. We did not, we didn't force anyone to do it, but it helps us with some of those unique places where there aren't as many available resources for kids in those classes.
So that's one thing I was wanting to know, is who picked the schools and how they were picked.
So through our Office of Innovation, Grant Knowles, he holds several different network small groups, and the teachers give him input around programs that would enhance those unique areas. Like I said, Algebra 2, AP classes, there's just this pocket, and they are the ones who brought the information to him. Like, that's how we found out about Nearpod. That's how we found out about Pivot. Teachers tell us what they need to enhance the work, and so this is one of those opportunities that they brought to us.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I just have a procedural question.
Yeah, Mr. Press.
Should we be using that, by the way, or not? Doesn't matter. Why precisely do we have to approve a free trial?
Because it's a contract.
It
has
is
to
a
be signed.
contract.
It's a contract,
Okay.
yeah.
Anything else under bids and contracts? Okay, moving on to financial reports. Anything about our June financial statement?
Yes. When is our June financial statement going to be ready?
We are working on it, so we're still closing the books and closing out grants. So I mean, we still have to submit stuff to the auditors. I think they usually start that in October. So it's
October it'll be
yeah,
ready?
and I think the financials got issued by the county in February last year. But
Okay.
we'll yeah, it's a long process.
So it's not a typical month end?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's-
I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a year-end closing, I get that.
Yeah.
And I get that they have to be audited as well, so I understand that it takes time.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Snap your fingers and get done.
Okay, moving on. Anything under federal grants, state grants, and self-funded programs?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Trying to see if that's the right, yes. So I'm newer to this conversation, I apologize if others understand. HCS Foundation, we are hiring somebody, we're approving a position, but I would have understood that the foundation was a separate entity under its own 501, I guess not C3 or whatever it is.
That's,
So this person will actually be on HCS payroll, but we will be reimbursed by the foundation. So Scott said, you all still just need to approve the position, but of course you approve the foundation, and so along with it, we would hire an individual to run the foundation. So it is a separate entity, but they will be on our payroll, but reimbursed by the foundation.
Why is that the setup?
That way, that allows them, instead of being the lone person, to be, you know, an HCS employee and have HCS benefits. It allows us to recruit a little bit easier as well, so.
Okay, so the reason that strikes me as odd is that, and as I read that, it says that this role would be under the employment of the Board of Education. And yet the HCS Foundation has its own board that should also select an executive director to run. So I find that
And that
incredibly complicated.
definitely is a Scott question, because Jen and I consulted Scott on all of those details, and we deferred that to him,
I'll
so.
follow up with you.
Absolutely,
Okay,
thank you.
I have many reasons. Another one, I'll say it now, is the concern that, I mean, my goal of this foundation, not that I have been involved in it in any way, but my goal would be that it could be a very significant foundation that could grow.
Absolutely.
And my experience of foundations is that they have to pay very well to hire
Right.
very good top philanthropists, and I don't want to get into a conflict of what that person would make within Hamilton County Schools if a foundation starts raising millions and millions of dollars, which I would love to know that it was raising millions.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So, all right, but I'll follow up with Scott. Thank you.
Can I ask a question about that?
Mr.
Sherry, I know you're very, oh my, these real expensive
breaking
microphones.
our new
Wow, it's
microphones.
tearing everything up. Wow. Funds for Excellence, aren't they set up? They have their own board. We don't do anything with really Funds for Excellence, do we? Do we approve? I just wonder if the setup is different.
They're also on our payroll.
Okay,
And
that's
then
what I'm
they're
wondering. Is the
reimbursed
setup
by
the
the
same
funds.
as they are? That's what I'm
Yes,
wondering.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
no problem. Moving on, nothing else there to grant application request, the ratification of the Stop School Violence Program grant submission. Anything on that? Anything, Ms. Brunson, on that we should know? Okay. And then moving down to the ratification of the U.S. Department of Education Teacher and School Leader Incentive Program. Nothing? Moving to the ratification of approval of the MOU with Blue Cross Blue Shield for Project Search. Anything on that? Nope. Okay, moving down to board policy. We have virtual education program. Any questions on that?
I just want an
Yeah.
explanation of that one. I read through it and got confused, so, yeah. Someone who's less confused.
So I don't mind to start, and then Jennifer can jump in as well, but it's been, I believe, 2 weeks ago, the State Board of Education met and required, if you'll recall, last January, there was a special called session by the state legislators, and they created a new law, I believe, around the continuous learning plan and really what we could and could not do as we started into this school year. Well, because there are some modifications to that, like I'll give you a for instance. Last year, we could do hybrid instruction where a teacher could be in the classroom, turn on her computer, and Zoom with the class for learning while also having 20 kids out here. Well, the state board asked that school districts come up with a policy for how we would still instruct or provide learning with kids who had to go home on quarantine, among some other pieces that we had to also kind of revisit and rewrite or rethink. And so that's the context of this policy that we're putting before you. It will be different, what we will be asking of teachers and what kids and parents can expect at home. But that's the purpose and the background of this plan. Now, I don't know if you have some more specific questions.
So it would fall under the virtual school, but it would be for quarantined students or, okay, sorry.
It won't fall under the virtual school, but it will basically allow for students to be present or marked as present if they're engaging meaningfully with the work while they're at home on quarantine.
3
or
hours a week, it
isolation.
said, right?
So,
Yeah.
that would be the homebound, is the 3 hours minimum.
Okay.
And the language is somewhat confusing because in the last 2 years, we've had at home, we've had virtual, we've had remote, we've had hybrid. The state required the policy to be entitled, I believe, virtual learning. So we had to write the policy around that specification.
And it's only for this school year, and it's only for students that are quarantined or
It's only for
isolated
this school year.
due to
Okay.
COVID-19.
And I do think at some point it is important because we've gotten questions from people that regarding HCS at home and asking for it. But I think it's important that people understand that the state no longer allows us to do this kind of hybrid learning model, and so this is an attempt to still stay within the state's boundaries and standards, but offer something for students who have to go home and be quarantined. The teacher wouldn't be involved. She wouldn't be, or he, sorry, either, but wouldn't be trying to manage both the students at home and this one. They would still.
Well, so what may look very different this year is, and we've got to kind of get ahead of this. We just started school, so teachers are really still in the startup stages of learning. We still have Canvas that families can log on to. We still have learning platforms that kids can log on to. The major difference this year is that it is not required that a teacher be full face on a Zoom all day with a student. It might be a little more similar to if a child went home for 6 or 7 days with the flu. They may have a packet, or they may have a little less face time with the teacher. And that's not prohibited, by the way, but it's just not the same level of demand that it was last year.
So
Thank you.
Yeah,
both.
that's all to say that synchronous instruction is permitted but not required under the policy.
Okay.
Is provided, but, say that again.
Permitted but not required.
Okay,
So
permitted not. Okay.
packets, Canvas, that's all.
Also, Justin, at one time, and I know this is something totally different than the other real virtual school that you have to enroll in and be in virtual school. I think that's why parents get so confused about all the virtual schools. And I have been asked about this virtual school. Is the state still mandating how many students can be enrolled from the school system?
So their mandates or guidelines in terms of class size in virtual school, just like there are in a regular classroom. We have seen a significant increase in the number of students that are actually in our virtual school. I think as of Friday of last week, we had somewhere around 326 students that were enrolled K through 12 in our virtual school. Registration for that was supposed to actually end a few weeks ago, but we've left it open just because we knew as things were transitioning, families may, want to access the virtual school, and so they can still enroll in virtual school if that's an option they want to look at.
Is that when the enrollment is closed, they can't, like in the middle of the year, if something comes up to.
So right now, it's still open.
Still open, so we'll be open.
Yeah, we're not putting an end date on it just because we've mispredicted several things and want to leave options open.
Do you lose your seat at your
Yes.
current school? Okay,
You do.
I didn't know if that changed. Okay.
Breaking mine. Just to clarify on this, it can be kind of through Canvas or Nearpod or whatever. It's not one program. It's through whatever okay, that's all.
And especially remember for our youngest learners, a packet
Yeah.
may have to be what we use for kindergarten.
Perfect. Thank you.
So as long as they're doing that, they're not counted as if that's the whole one. So everybody's clear.
Okay, now we will go down to board matters. We have the disciplinary hearing authority, the athletic and performing arts support, and the SRO program agreement. Any questions on that?
yes as well.
Mr. Perez.
Walk me through the disciplinary hearing authority and when they respond to a case, or what kind of cases they will deal with.
So disciplinary hearing authority we've had in place for, this will be the third year. And essentially it's for any suspension that's over 10 days. So a school level administrator has the authority to suspend a student up to 10 days. After 10 days, the parent has a right to appeal the suspension. The disciplinary hearing authority comes in play when the parent wants to exercise that right. And essentially, in layman's terms, I say there are two ways, and Scott's probably gonna slap my hand for saying it this way, but essentially I think they've got two responsibilities. Number one, to make sure that the student got due process, right, and had the ability to exercise their right to due process. Number two, to make sure that what the school handed out in terms of discipline fits within our code of acceptable behavior. From there, they have the right or the ability to modify a suspension. So for example, we, even in some zero tolerance cases, there could be extenuating circumstances where we say, really, this kid, even though it was a zero tolerance, we really don't want him to be out of school for a year. So DHA could place them at Washington Alternative.
Not for a ZT.
Not for a ZT, sorry, bad example. But essentially, we don't want kids being out of school. It's a way to ensure that kids are still in school. Told you to slap my hand on something.
He's
Still
been
get
driving
still get an A.
fast, so.
You still get an A.
And what's our, on the other, what's our status on SROs and SSOs?
So SROs have 32 officers assigned to middle and high schools. 5 of those officers are either new to the county or new to the position, and so have some various levels of training that they have to go to. They were all in schools last Thursday and Friday, and then those 5 are currently out doing training. Some of them are relatively short time, some more of an extended time. We have 18 SSOs and 1 that is currently going through the final phases of their background check, so we'll be fully staffed at SSOs by probably the end of this week.
Weren't we gonna be at 25 SSOs? Am I missing?
19. You guys authorized
Up to
a couple months ago that if we get additional funding, that we could go ahead and hire up to 25 more. CPD also provided 2 SROs to help as well, so we're in about as good of a shape as we've ever been in one.
Anything else on that? We did keep that job open, so we do kind of have.
We've already actually have screened and have a pool that if additional funding comes through, we're ready to start going.
Sounds like we need some additional funding. Get those positions and those officers in our schools. Moving on to request for positions, the 1 exceptional education pre-K teacher, transition academy teacher, 2 exceptional ed pre-K assistants, and 1 transition academy educational assistant. Anything on that? Ms. Thurman?
Are these positions that we have approved before, and it's just approving funding for those positions, or what exactly is this?
So what we've done in the past is we've had a contract with an external agency, I believe it's Siskin. And so Siskin did not choose to renew that contract with us for this coming school year. So our children will still need to receive services. So what was contracted now has to come in-house, and we have to provide the correct service plan for those kiddos.
So the money's already been approved, we're just doing
Yes.
this, that's what I wanted to do.
Yes, it's all budget neutral.
Okay.
And, is the Transition Academy, is that the Howard, Welcome, that's not the same thing as the Welcome Academy? Okay, it's a totally separate program. I'm not familiar with this. Where is it located?
The Transition Academy for ESOL. Gosh, I just totally went blank. Let me look at it and I'll get you an
Oh,
answer.
okay.
I know I have it, I just forgot, drew a blank. I'll get it for you.
No worries.
Moving on to the request for approval for the revisions to the memorandum of understanding between HCD and HCEA. Anything on that? Penny, can you just give us a brief overview on this?
Sure, it's just updates to the MOU from collaborative conferencing. So one is the removal of the 15-year cap of experience for hires coming into HCS. Before we would say we only give you 15 years credit. Also, it's just changing from the board's policy change for OJI to include, you know, if you're hit by a student accidentally or otherwise if they're exceptional ed. A waiver of the waiting period for benefits, and then just removal of the sick leave bank for replacement of short-term disability, and then updates to the board policy of sabbatical leave to reflect that it's unpaid. So that's it.
Thank you for that. Moving on, we've already touched on this, but the,
Hold on.
oh, yep, Ms. Thurman?
I have so many pieces of paper. Are we voting on, if I may have totally missed it on here. Well, I don't know what I did with it. The increase on the classified, we did that the last board meeting, am I correct? We've had so many meetings I can't remember. We did, yes. Okay. I guess I need to speak with you, Penny, about some of the concerns that I have because we are hiring people in making more than some of our people who've been here for 25 years. We need to deal with that. I'm not sure what we need.
That's one of the memos that's included for tonight.
I cannot understand you.
It's in here, Ms. Thurman.
It's
good,
in here,
yeah.
yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And so, do you want me to go ahead and speak to that?
It's number 3 in that same
Yeah.
section.
Number 3 on that same section. I started saying, I thought we
Sure,
were getting
so
close.
we've recognized that there is some pay compression, of course. And so what we're proposing for the board is to approve 2 steps for employees who were hired prior to August 2020. And that would take most employees up about 50 cents. That's not, you know, where we ultimately want to be, but it's going to address part of the pay compression issues.
But what about people who've stepped out?
So that is another concern. And so we are engaging with a compensation consultant and specialist to help us review it because this current pay scale that we have now, we need an outside consultant to really help us adjust and alter it so that we don't have folks maxed out. So they'll do a comp study to see what should be paid. It's a consultant who works with a lot of different school districts with a lot of experience in that. And so that will hopefully help us address that.
Yeah, because I do know some people who've worked for the school system about 25 years, and we're hiring people in making more than they are, and that is just not right.
And I've talked to them, and they're all great, valued employees, and so I told them we're looking to address it.
Okay, we need to deal with that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Penny. Moving on to board policies, these are,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ms. Robinson, to answer your question, there are 2 different types of transition academies, one for ESOL, or this is a special ed program that will be housed at Hillcrest.
Okay.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
It's not the ESOL.
Tucker, I hate to
Yep.
do this
Ms.
again,
Smith.
but I'm gonna ask you to regress one more time because I had this in my notes and I just fell asleep over here. But under board matters, request for funding athletics and performing arts.
yes.
My question is, I know the request is for 300,000 from fund balance to provide some reimbursement. But I'm a little concerned about the last sentence there where it says schools have applied for critical requests and will be evaluated based on financial needs by a committee. So 2 concerns. First, have we already told schools to start applying for this money even though it hadn't been approved? Has that already happened?
We have, just because some of the critical needs are going to be for fall sports, and just knowing that they've started and that this meeting, football already starts on Friday, right?
Okay,
And
so all schools have been alerted that they have that opportunity?
Yes, sir.
To apply. Okay, and then evaluate based on financial needs by a committee. What's the makeup of
Brad
that
Jackson's
committee?
working on putting that committee together, and we'll request a board member,
Okay.
preferably you, since that falls more under what your committees are, to help with it.
Okay.
But they have, and basically on the request, what we asked them to do, and the intent behind this is, again, to make sure it's a critical need. There were some schools that were hurt by COVID much more than other schools, and so what we asked them to do is provide revenue and expenses for the last 3 fiscal years to show that, you know, their balances were hurt by
Yeah,
COVID.
yeah.
And then for it to be a critical need, something that, you know, we're not wanting soccer teams go out and buy new uniforms just because they want new uniforms.
Yeah,
It needs
yeah.
to be a critical need.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Because
so-
I know of one school, not one of my schools, but I know of a high school that didn't even have enough football helmets.
I think I know which one we're talking about, and we've already helped them address that, because
Okay.
that almost went beyond a critical need.
Yeah.
They had helmets that after 10 years, you don't know this, after 10 years, football helmets can't even be reconditioned.
That's right.
They just have to go
That's
out of
right.
service. And so, football coach got there, new football coach, and recognized that the majority of their helmets were outside of 10 years. And so
So we've got that fixed for him.
we've already worked on that, and that won't be something that's in here, but that's a great example of
Okay.
a critical need.
Okay.
All good, Mr.
Sorry,
Smith?
Tucker.
No, you're good. Going back, board policies, these are first readings. Anything on any of these? Okay, nothing there. And then we will go down to the request of approval of appropriation of fiscal year 21 fund balance for capital maintenance. I have something on this if no one else does. So this is going straight to our maintenance budget. So that puts our maintenance budget, what would that, 4 million a year?
It was 3 million, we added $1 million out of our, because we had some built in the budget, so this is an additional $1 million.
Perfect. I'm glad we're, and I'm guessing
Probably
this.
still not enough, but it's,
No.
we've improved to pitiful.
It's definitely not enough by any standards, but it's a step in the right direction. And this was all generated from excess or surplus sales tax revenues, right?
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Anything else,
Yeah,
Mr.
I want
Press?
to say to that, and I'll probably repeat myself on Thursday here, but we're going to see 2 big contrasts Thursday. One, I think we have a presentation about our TCAPs and how well we did in the midst of this. But I also think what has been lost in the last couple of weeks is what happened at Tyner and what's happened in other places where the investment in the capital needs of our schools is just so underinvested, and I think it's just going to be really important for us in these coming years to, like, I love that we're still hitting beyond the marks, but we cannot have our students be in buildings that the roofs are caving in on, and that's not that is not Hamilton County, and that matters more than many things we pay a lot of attention to. So anyway, so I think to me that contrast was just really huge. I called Dr. Robertson because we had an issue over at East Ridge too, and your explanation to me, if I'm correct, was they're old units, old systems, and we're blessed that nobody was hurt, but that's not an excuse. We just can't have stuff like that happening, whether it's roofs, whether it's ACs, anything else, while we're here applauding successes that are worthy of our applause. And so we're going to need the community to really rally so that we can have funding to fix the schools beyond the $1 million that we're giving to try to, take care of some of these issues.
Ms. Thurman?
Just, I remember, it's one good thing about being on the board a long time. I remember back when Harold Coker was on the county commission, that's been a long time ago, we had a $4 million capital maintenance budget that many years ago. And we've just whittled away at it, taking money out of there and putting it in other things. So we're just now back where we were, what's that, 10 years ago or more? Probably.
15 years ago.
Yeah, so it's been a long time ago. So we were at 4 million then, now we're, but anyway. Justin, can you give us just a real bird's eye view of what's going on at Tyner, where are we, and where are we about getting something done? Where the students gonna be housed that have been moved out of their building, that kind of thing. I get a
So
lot of-
it's a 400 building there, which the top level I think has the library and 6 classrooms. It's mainly impacting, I think, 3 of the classrooms. And again, I'm not a construction worker. But layman's example is that one of the supporting beams on the end has just deteriorated, and so it's caused that side to kind of push down, which then push the wall to kind of bow out. So essentially the fix is take that down, make sure that we've got the right fix in place, replace the beams, replace the roof. All in all, right now, it's gonna be at least $170,000 to do all that work. We're in the process of getting that started. What we're waiting on now is, just to ensure that our kids are safe in the building. We asked a structural specialist to come in and ensure that there were no other issues with the building and that it was safe for students to return, and we're waiting for that report to come back before we allow students back in the building.
Okay, where are we in all the renovation for Tyner? When is the starting date do we have a starting date at all to go in and renovate that whole building?
We don't.
Okay.
There's a memo here, or update on ESSER 3 funding that we've set aside $25 million to start that. We obviously will need additional funds to do it, but this is a pressing need, and I think
Yes.
to Mr. Perez's point, it's something that needs to be elevated. If you were asking what I think, and I've talked to Justin Witt about this, is one step that we need to go ahead and take immediately is to work with the county commission to go ahead and identify an architect that can go ahead and start the design phase of Tyner, so that when funding is available, we're shovel ready, instead of funding available, then finding an architect and spending a year planning.
Did we not allocate some money for that in our other capital budget somewhere?
If you remember 4 years ago, there was one initial draft of a plan that was renovating that entire building, but when they got into it, they recognized that
That was at the middle school, though.
middle and the high school.
Okay.
And it just was not, it's not a building that would be putting good money into a bad building.
Okay. I'd just like to stay updated on that, because that is a very serious concern for me. Okay, thank you.
How much money we got available right now? There's a pocket of money that we have available for that project, don't we? Isn't there?
No, sir, there's not.
I thought it was a part of our list from 3-4 years ago.
I did too, that's what I'm.
And so originally there was talks about it, but it was in reaction to CSLA. Remember, there was an initial thought that CSLA could go in the middle school building and Tyner Middle High could go in the high school building. And they got into the assessment that was not going to work. It was going to be way more expensive, and there were different facets of the building, the elevation being one. We're going to have to put in, I think, 4 elevators.
But when there are funds allocated.
That was
to do
really
that.
CSLA funds, and so those funds are what we're using to renovate Lakeside and build the new CSLA.
I got you.
But if I remember, it was like 27 million, and now we have 27 million of federal money that we're going to be able to put 25 million worth of federal funds that will be towards that project. We will just need additional funds to complete the project. Gotcha. Okay, anything else on that? Okay, we'll move down to delegations. 13 delegations on Thursday night. Legal services report, and then events and announcements. Anything on those?
Before you go to that, you had a memo on the COVID pay.
Oh, yes. You also have a memo on your desk from Ms. Murray about COVID leave for teachers, which will be added to our agenda. Do you want to briefly just go over that, since we haven't got a chance to see it yet?
Thanks, Tucker. So it'd actually be for all employees.
Oh, okay.
And we're proposing 5 days of COVID leave. for eligible employees for this school year, to help ease the burden of those who have limited sick leave or no sick leave yet. And, you know, to Dr. Town's point, if they're quarantined for 10 days, 6 of those are work days, so 5 days should be adequate to assist in that.
And that will be added to our agenda on Thursday. Ms. Robinson?
Can I get a little clarification from that? Okay, so if you are off quarantine, and I know you have to take a COVID test after, what, how many days? What's the rules? The rules change, 5 days, 7 days, something like that?
Day 5 or later.
Excuse me?
Day 5 or later.
Day 5 or later, okay.
And then you can return on
Okay,
day 8.
Okay, and then, okay, so you've taken a few days of that leave and you didn't have COVID. What if you get exposed again? I mean, at some point, this gets to be a little crazy.
Well, this would be 5 days for the full
Yeah,
school
just-
year.
Yeah, the whole school year. So there's no way they could get tested before 5 days and be able to go back to work if they're clean, or just?
No, unfortunately, actually the health department is recommending 14 days without the option to
Yeah.
test out, but gave us the discretion, so we stuck with the 10 days with the option to test out and return on day 8, so that's about as good as we can do at this point.
Okay, thank you.
And Ms.
Yeah.
Thurman, this is very similar to what we had last
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
where there was a bucket of leave that they could use, but we had some employees who went into quarantine, came back, went into quarantine, came back, went into quarantine, came back. So it's not a perfect solution, but it's something for
Yeah.
people who are otherwise going to have to take leave.
Because
and they're not gonna
we already have
compensate.
some employees that are having to dig into this.
Yeah. I'll just flag though that 72% of our classroom teachers have been vaccinated. So if they aren't exhibiting any symptoms, they don't have to quarantine at all.
Okay, so the ones that have had vaccination, if they don't have any symptoms, they don't have to quarantine.
Don't have to quarantine at all. So we should be much better off in terms of staffing this year than we were last year.
Ms. Robinson?
Actually, Rhonda addressed it.
Oh.
Rhonda addressed what I was wondering, so thank you.
How do we ensure that you know, I'm a teacher and I'm tired. I need me a few days off, but I don't allege that I've been exposed so I can get some days off. I mean, I can see that happening.
Well, don't you receive a letter from the health department that says that you're required to quarantine because you've been exposed? I think I remember that happening whenever my children.
Well, I got exposed at the mall, or I got exposed at church, or not necessarily at school.
Well, this is really about contact tracing. Like if you're part of a contact tracing trail, and then you would have something from the health department.
You ought
I'm making
to,
assumptions
yes.
based on last year.
Yes, you ought to receive a letter. If you're contact traced internally, we would notify you that you've been a close contact and ask that you not come.
Well, the reason I ask that question is because I had a principal tell me that she's feared that has happened. And of course, there's no way to prove it, but I don't know how you police that. And, has everything to do with integrity, I guess, but I can see that happening.
So I think important to repeat, the teachers who have been vaccinated, if they are not showing any symptoms, would not be asked to quarantine.
Yep. And students likewise that are eligible and have been vaccinated would not have to quarantine.
Anything else on that? Okay, then we'll go to events and announcements, and that is it.
Mr. Chairman, we do have one other ad that we need to put under the consent agenda for C, under Executive Committee Report. Item 1 would be an editorial amendment to the contract for Dr. Towns. There was a typo in there. We referenced several times during the meeting the travel amount of $4,800, but it reads $4,500. So I suggested that the Executive Committee go ahead and edit it, make a note, but it does need to be ratified by the board.
And that will go under the consent agenda, correct?
That would
Perfect.
be
I saw
suggested.
the email earlier about it, but I just forgot to bring that up. Mr. Smith?
Tucker, just for, probably Rhonda's the only one that can answer my question because she's been around since Moses, but we got 13 delegations, and these folks have an absolute right to come to us and talk what they want to talk about. They absolutely have the right. but if all of them exercise their 5 minutes, then we're over an hour. What's the math? 65 minutes maybe, if they all use their full 5 minutes. I'm aware that the city council does the same thing, and they allow 3 minutes. County commission does the same thing. They allow 3 minutes. Where do we get to 5? I mean, 5 minutes is a long time behind a microphone. How did you get to 5, Rhonda? How'd that happen?
I don't remember. It's
so-
always been 5 that I remember.
Well, so
No, it hasn't? Okay.
we didn't have public comment for a very long time. We only started public comment at all in 2014 or 2015.
Well, I'm glad, it's a good
No,
thing.
no,
I'm
no,
glad
that's
you
not true.
started, but
That's not true. I'm sorry, Scott, but that's not true. Because I did
You're
a
right,
lot of,
you're right, you're
I
right.
know I'm right.
Yeah.
I know I'm
we
right.
expanded
Because
it.
I did the public comment a lot before I got on this board.
Yeah.
But that was back in, I started
Yeah, you're
speaking
right.
back in 1998, 1999, so
Yeah.
I know we were doing it then.
But it was harder to get in front of the board back then, and it was 3 minutes. So one of the things that Dr. Martin wanted to do was to expand the access, and so we went to 5 minutes, and essentially you could get on the board by showing up and signing up. So that's when the time was expanded.
so we
Mr.
blame it on Greg then.
If you want to.
Okay, all right.
Well, I
That
think
that just seems like 5 minutes is a long time. Akin to that, and again, a Rhonda question, have you ever had an opportunity where you have just some kind of forum and the whole 2 hours is dedicated once a month or once a quarter to letting people approach the board rather than doing it at a board meeting? Has anything like that ever
I don't
been
think we ever
considered?
done anything like that I know of.
We did one time. Back in 2016, we had a bullying
Oh.
and harassment
Yeah.
forum where Dr. Welch.
But that was just addressing that one thing.
It was just it was actually in response to the Pinkston report. So when the Pinkston report was issued, Dr. Welch had public comment for about 90 minutes. We thought it'd be longer than that, but people heard what other folks said it's already been said. So that's a good idea. And I think, I don't know who saw some of the discussion, but the law is now moving in the direction of if you open the mic, then you can't really regulate what people say or even how they say it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you almost, if you want to give people the open access, you almost have to do what you're suggesting, Mr. Smith, and maybe have a specific forum for it.
To me, that would make more sense, and, 'cause that's valuable time, and that's gonna be a long time. And again, I think it's vitally important that anybody wants to come up here and has something to say, they absolutely have that right. But 5 minutes is a long time to be behind that mic. And I know that we've had some that it becomes rambling, if you will, and not a lot of substance, a lot of times. Not a lot of time, but a lot of times.
But one thing on here, Joe, I noticed we moved it to the end instead of the beginning. Now, if people have something to say about something that's going to be voted on, that was the problem. That's why we moved it to the beginning. So if there are delegates that want to speak and speak about something to be voted on that day, can we move them to the front? We might need to keep that in mind. I don't know.
The executive committee sets the agenda, and so one of the things that I think the executive committee tries to do is, the way your policy is set up, they identify that they want to speak. The executive committee has the opportunity to say, hey, what are you speaking on? And you see it. If it is pertinent to something that's actually on the agenda, then the executive committee, I suppose, could move them up. But the way that the way that the executive committee has this set up, I don't think anyone's speaking anything that's on the agenda.
I don't think so.
I think it's about, largely it's about curriculum
Yeah,
this time around, I
Yeah.
think.
Yes, that's true.
yeah. So-
And as an aside, your board policy actually says if someone has a question about curriculum, what they're supposed to do is take it to the curriculum committee and go through proper channels.
That's right.
So really I agree with Mr. Smith, it certainly makes sense for people to be able to come to the board, but it doesn't make a lot of sense in that case for it to start with the board.
Well, I think they just want to make us aware of some things maybe we're not aware of, and I'm personally thankful for that. I'm very much open to just having a forum to let them come in and speak. I don't have a problem with that. But I find it very odd that when I first started speaking to the board, that's one of the reasons that they put the little thing in, because I called out some people by name, and that's why they say you can't say their name anymore. And the people that questioned my integrity about that were Charles Love and Ward Crutchfield. And they both ended up going to prison. So I thought that was very odd, and I'm still here. But anyway, I lived through that. I know when all that happened. I know what happened. And like I say, when I was speaking to the board, I was being reprimanded by those folks. And so been there, done that. But anyway, like I say, I do not have a problem with giving parents opportunities to speak and just let them present whatever they have to present, give them 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. I do not have a problem with that at all. That's what the board wants to do.
Maybe at a workshop or at some point, we could talk about looking at that whole policy. I just think 5 minutes is a long time.
And Mr. Smith, a lot of boards right now are exploring that. And sometimes they have workshops just for public comment because they want the board.
Well, that's what I was referring to,
Yeah,
some kind of forum or something to.
Because the way that you're set up now, you have someone who says something to you, and it's not set up for the board to ask the citizen
right.
questions.
That's right.
Because you've got, sometimes another 2 hours of work to do.
Yeah.
So what like Washington County, as a for instance, does is they'll have a work session where there's nothing on the agenda except what the folks want to say, and then they spend time talking about what they just heard the public
Well,
say.
that's true, Scott, and it's one of the reasons I even bring this up, because I have heard folks come up here and tell us things that are going on. And I want to say, can you give me a time and a place, people that's been involved in doing what you're alleging, but we're not allowed to ask those kind of questions. So I just think that whole policy, and again, absolutely, anybody who wants to come has a right, and we need to listen to what they have to say. But I just don't like the way it's set up, that's all.
I will say, it is on, the policy is on first read for edits. So if this is something that the board wants to take up, you have an opportunity to edit the first read. So I think there are some changes about the agenda. To your point, it says 5 minutes, but if you all want us to make updates between first and second read, we have the opportunity to do that for September. So the policy is up right now. And to the point, you all could even say, since we did put the language in the first read that's around the agenda, you could say that they come to the agenda session to make their comments. So it is in advance of the meeting for you all to hear what the concerns are. Like, those are, all the options are on the table. It's the pleasure of the board. I did just want to flag that we are in an editing process right now for that policy.
Well, I think we need to have that conversation, because again, my biggest issue is I've heard folks come here and say things, allege things, and I just want to say, can you tell me when and how that happened? But with the system we have now, we can't do that.
Anything else?
Yeah, I mean,
Robinson?
I did just want to echo that I feel strongly in agreement with Joe's comments. There's been so many times on this board for the last 4 years whenever we have parents speak to us or community members speak to us, and there's just not enough time to address their concerns, and it actually makes me feel terrible that we don't get to comment back. So anyways, all of to say, even if it wasn't something that we end up making a part of our monthly board meeting, I mean, honestly, as board members, we could just organize something ourselves and just make it happen ourselves. So, and it's not something that every board member has to attend unless they want to. So I just feel pretty strongly about that with you. So.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda session. Y'all want a couple minute break before we start the special called session? Okay, we'll take a couple minute break before our special called session, and we will adjourn.
All right, I think we're about ready to start. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Ford, will you call the roll, please?
Chairman Wingate.
Here.
Vice Chairman McClendon.
Here.
Mrs. Hill. Mrs. Jones. Mr. Perez.
Here.
Mrs. Robinson.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Thurman.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
All right. So I guess we need to go ahead and just get a motion in a second, if possible, and then we can discuss what you have in front of you and all the possibilities here. So do we have a motion to approve
So
the RFP?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. So what we have here, obviously, is what Mr. Bennett has been so kind to put together for us, and also with revisions from the last time that we went through this process. I think what I'd like to, well, I'll just open it up. But obviously, on the first page, we're going to have to come to some decision also tonight, I guess, here about our numbers 3, 4, and 5 on the front page before we get out of here tonight. And then also any questions about the content or discussion around the content of the RFP. Ms. Thurman?
So, so we're just going to initially just try to find a search firm that will search a internal candidate first, correct? Before we go any further than this?
I don't know if that's...
Yeah, actually, the way this, what this would do is it would invite folks to make proposals to do two things.
Two things.
So they would give you a proposal. So let's say I'm TSBA, and so I'm Dr. Grissom, and I say, so Hamilton County School Board, you've asked for 2 proposals. So we will vet your internal candidates for this much money, and this is what that would look like. Alternatively, if you want to do a full search, we'll do that for this much money, and this is what it would look like. So you're not yet choosing which option. You're gathering information to find out what those 2 options look like. What would they cost and what would they entail?
So, Scott, given the example you just gave, given the example you just gave, would there'll be 2 separate prices?
Yes, sir.
That's what you just said. So we'll be able to accept maybe Part A of their proposal without accepting Part B of their proposal?
Yes, sir. That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And I hadn't really thought about it, but I can't think of any reason that you couldn't accept Part A of one firm's proposal and then Part B of another firm's proposal. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but you could do it that way. It might create extra work on the part of the other firm, but they work for you.
So if we accept somebody's Part A and we find an internal candidate, then we don't even have a need for Part B. 'Cause
Correct.
we're done.
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Mr. McClendon?
So a couple of things just on timeline. As I've said before, that's probably one of the most important things to me. First paragraph, and I brought this up last Thursday. You know, it says no later than July 1st, 2022. Is there a reason? I know that's kind of no later than, but I also think it kind of gives a little room for whoever we hire to say, well, by contract, we have no later than July 1st, and I, for one, don't want to not have a superintendent for about a year.
Well, that's a very fair point. So The reason we have July 1 is no other than that's the start of your next fiscal year.
Yeah.
And I think in this board, I think would agree, if you are waiting that long, you waited a really long time. The reality of it is, once you find someone who's qualified, they're going to start, and you name someone, they're going to start wrapping up wherever they are. And very likely they'll look to get out of their existing and I'm assuming you're picking someone who's external, right? Very likely they look to start to wrap things up, and they're going to hand things off to someone to develop their own budget. So if you think about it, if Dr. Johnson had been approached by someone else in, say, January or February, and he signed a contract, we would have started a transition, and so very likely whoever the interim would have taken over the development of that budget and presentation. So same thing.
Yeah.
The July is no later than, we're much more likely, assuming that we're quick on this, we're much more likely, assuming external, to be able to seat someone by May 1, I would think.
Still a long time.
Yeah, I think the only and the reason it's important to me is I think it shows that the board wants to move with urgency, and it's an urgent situation in my mind. And when I hear May 1st, July 1st, June 1st, it's kind of like, it's not urgent. Like, I want whoever it is, if it's TSBA, if it's whoever we used last time, if it's another 4 or 5 countries from wherever, like, they get this tomorrow, and they're like, oh, they mean business. They want a superintendent by January 1st. Like, January 1st was kind of the date that popped into my head. Just
Sure.
Makes sense as the calendar year. So
That would be a tall order.
Yeah.
Mr. McClendon, I mean, that'd be a tall order.
yeah.
But we could put that there, and that what that means simply is that there may be some candidates, some external candidates
Can't apply.
that your search firm might not approach
Yeah.
because they know that they're under contract.
Yeah, I just, I get the business of it and how it works and that kind of stuff, but even May 1st is just, there's too long of momentum can be lost there. And I know we're talking external candidate here and however we do this, if it's internal, external, that's just way too long in my opinion. We saw what happened last time and how long that kind of process took. I just think the board can get this done in a timely manner. And, if they can't do it, then they can just say, hey, we can't do this. And we can say, what can you do? Put that in and we can take that to heart. But I think we have to sense some urgency on this.
So I think, to your point, I think a 4-month search is very doable if everyone's really serious about it. And the good thing is this board's done a lot of the heavy lifting. There's a plan that y'all developed years ago that's still a good plan. You've got someone who's already implementing your plan. So I think you've done some heavy lifting. I think if the contract start date is October 1, and if you're okay with that, then I think if you say 4 months, that's February 1, is that right? February 1 as an anticipated seating date. So if you wanted to say this is July 1, maybe February 1, or if you wanted to fudge March 1,
I
think
want to
that
fudge and say January 1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think, and if there's wording that we need to add in here at your discretion to say January 1st, and if they can't do it, they can put that in their proposal and say, we can't meet this, but we think we can do February 1st, and the board will take it as consideration. But I don't think, I think we get in our own way sometimes and allowing an outside company to say, well, by our contract, we have till May 1st to get someone seated. Well, then they're obligated to do that, and that's what they have to do. I can pound on the desk all I want, and they're going to say, well, the board signed this. This is what we're obligated to do. So that's my thing is I think January 1st, whether it's doable or not, I think we need to try our best to to execute on that. And if it's something, you know, if we go with someone and they're honest with us, say, well, February 1st, then I'm a lot better with that than just free reining it and saying May 1st, June 1st, July 1st. I think one thing that I think, and the more I've thought about this, is it's urgency. It has to be a high quality search, either internally or externally. But we can't just, we got to do something, and I'm not here for a 11-month, 10-month search.
Well, I can't think of anything more fun than drawing out a superintendent search, if I'm just being really honest, Tucker. It's by far the most exciting experience of a board term. I'm just kidding. None of us are here for
Kind of weed
10 or
you
11
smoke.
months.
What are you smoking?
I literally was so stressed out the last time that my eyes swelled shut. So yes, I would love to get through this process as quickly as we can. But I guess to your point, I mean, we're going to ultimately negotiate a contract with the consulting firm if we do hire one. Scott, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So, like, what's in the RFP, is that legally bound anyways?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
it is. Okay, so you couldn't, like, put one thing in the RFP and then, like, go build a contract that says something a little different.
So the language that I've used is if they accept it, if they bid, they're bound by it, but
They almost could, like, sign the RFP. It's like such legal. Okay, I got
correct.
it.
But
Okay.
but we reserve the right to change any of the terms
Yeah.
that we need
Okay.
based upon the efficient operation of the
I was,
schools.
I was trying to come up with, like, a happy medium on this.
There's no happy
Tuckers.
medium. I mean, we
Yeah,
have a need,
I see that.
and they
Yeah.
have a service to provide us.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Okay.
Can we just go with like somebody like TSBA? I'm sorry,
It's all right.
and just not and forego this if there's somebody thinking, and then go through this process if we want an outside candidate, if we can't decide on an internal candidate. I mean,
Well, I think I'm gonna let Mr. Perez speak here because he's wanting to speak. I think this is my opinion, but I think as quickly as we're asking for these to be, as quick as the deadline is, I mean TSBA is they're not gonna respond any more quickly, I would think, than that. I mean, if this thing got sent out tomorrow, TSB may have something here by what, Scott, Thursday, Friday, and I mean
Yeah,
we're asking everybody else to have it by the 1st of next week. I mean, I do hear what you're saying, Mr. Starman. I don't know how much how much more it expedites the process.
The reality is, the people who do this, they know that we're talking about this tonight.
They're watching
They're
right
watching.
now.
Yeah, I've had people ask me about this,
They're watching.
and I've been ignoring them. But so they know about this. I'm not concerned that we won't have responses by the 24th.
Mr. Perez.
I think for me, the date of July 1st has a lot to do with whether it's internal or external, which I think we'll have to have that discussion and make that decision at some point. My concern of not extending it, you know, I hope they find the candidate soon, but I don't want to, if we go external, I don't want to miss the opportunity of candidates who would be unwilling to step away from their role, whether as superintendent or some other position before their school year or fiscal year would be over. And so I think if we go external, there could be some people who might be phenomenal candidates who, because they're phenomenal, perhaps, I'm not saying that would be always the case, but would say, I'm not leaving my school year in the middle of the school year. I'm going to wait till the end of the school year when we've gone through this year, whatever this year looks like, before I walk away. So that would be my concern, is people self-selecting to not apply for this role because we're asking for them to come in January 1st. So if we go internal, I think all of that is void because internal candidates, we can probably move them through the system much quicker.
Mr. McClendon.
Yeah, I think kind of what I go back to, and I mean, that's in the back of my mind as well, but the board can always extend that. Like if whoever if we go with a search firm or whatever, they can come back to us and say, hey, we need to is it February 1st? You know, we can't do it January 1st, we'll do February 1st, and the board decides, hey, that's fine.
So my middle ground, if I could, would be that they identify the candidate by January 1st, for sure, because then the board would have the opportunity to say, if we find the right candidate, but he says, or she says, I'm not willing to leave at this moment, I have to wait to wrap this term off, then the board could say, we'll give you until July 1st to begin. I'm just, throwing that, or June 1st, or whatever it may be, when that individual wraps up their term, whatever their term may be. So I'm just afraid that if we go external, candidates could self-select to get out of it because they wouldn't be willing. I know I have had that sort of situation where I've got a year commitment and I'm not going to do it. So.
Mr. Bennett, if per se something like that happened, could that candidate say, if whatever, hypothetically it was 3 people and 2 of them could start that date, 1 of them couldn't, they could notify the board and the board can make that decision ultimately, correct?
That's exactly right. So if I could repeat back what I think I heard Mr. Perez say, and this I think actually drills down to where you're going, Mr. McClendon. So if the language read, the Board of Education intends to engage the chosen firm for the period of time necessary to select the best qualified candidate no later than January 1, 2022. So select the best candidate no later than January 1, 2022. And then, so that's your deadline to select. And if one candidate says, I'm available tomorrow, and the other one says, well, I'm available in 4 months, that may bend the board's choice and say,
that's up to us.
Yeah, I think by changing the language to select, that gets the board where it wants to go. You have someone that you can name January 1, and makes for a great Christmas vacation, guys. But yeah, and then you could appoint someone right away, or if you wanted to wait another 4 months, that's the discretion of the board.
Yeah, I'm kind of seems like it's the same, but gives us leeway to each make that decision whenever we have our finalist.
If that language is comfortable with the board, I'll amend it right now.
Any comment, discussion on that part? Okay, Mr. Bennett?
We do need to talk about, as you said, Mr. Chairman, 3, 4, and 5. Last time I think we had, was it 4 firms? 4 firms, and so there was some work to do. I think there were 2 that clearly jumped out that y'all decided to interview. But I'd kind of like for us to go ahead and get that knocked out so I can send this RFP out tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, so the 24th, week from tomorrow for responses. And so initial review of responses, and you'll have to jog my memory because I don't remember all of how that, I do remember us having meeting around and having discussion of the respondents. I just don't remember how many times it took us to finally get to a vote as to when we did choose somebody. So we're sitting here looking at, I see what you've got in number 6 is October 1. So if we kind of work backwards from that, or in between what we've set as a deadline for responses, we're looking at 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. I don't think any of us want to go that long. Or I guess I'm just thinking out loud. I don't want to go that long. But so let's talk about that. I mean, if you all have some calendars here in front of you. So responses would be due a week from tomorrow. We would not be scheduled, and obviously we're going to have a special meeting, or maybe 2 here. That's what I'm trying to figure out, is how many it would take. But our next regularly scheduled meeting would not be until the 13th, which would be, it would just be like tonight, an agenda discussion. Don't let me mess this up, Ms. Ford. I think I'm looking at this right.
You're correct.
And so you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks from tonight. So you guys tell me, I mean, if we get them in a week from tomorrow, the next step you have there, Mr. Bennett, is initial review. So I guess that's not review after those have been sent, but hey, that's an official discussion, right?
Yes, sir. And
After a period of review.
And there's no reason that you can't collapse 4 and 5 onto one meeting. So if you interview the candidates and you want to turn around and vote that same night, there's no reason you can't do that.
Okay.
The reason that we baked some time in there last time is the board's view was that this was the most important decision it had made in a really long time, because it was the process of finding your next superintendent. So y'all didn't want to cram stuff up. I think if you do initial reviews, say 2 weeks prior to the interviews. So with number 3, if you were to review it together and then vote on who you want to invite to have the interview, and then give people time to show, to chew on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we want a contract start date of October 1, then I think you're looking at having a decision no later than the week of the 20th.
Okay.
And if you want a decision no later than the week of the 20th, I think you're going to want a review probably no later than the week of the 6th.
Okay. Mr. McLennan, you got something there?
You said we could do 3 and 4 together, correct?
I think you can do 4 and 5 together.
Because I had thought the same thing, Tucker, which was if we did 3 and 4, we could review and interview, but hearing you, it's ideal to review and invite to interview those that are less. So 3 and then 4
4
and
and
5
together. So
together as, okay, now we've interviewed, we have our discussion, and we decide this is the one that we're going to go with.
It's possible that you get 4 applicants.
Yeah.
In which case, you may as well interview them all, right?
Yeah,
It's
that's the thing.
also possible that you get 10, and you're not going to want to interview them all,
Yeah,
right? So that's why I think you need to have
the interview separate.
an initial review followed by an interview and selection separated out. I'm
So-
not trying to overcomplicate this, I promise.
No,
No. So in that, just so I'm clear, that initial review, we can set who we want to interview.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. That's where I was getting confused.
Anybody got anything, any other ideas about that? Again, I'm open to whatever. I want to make sure we've got ample time. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Just an observation, it probably doesn't mean anything, and y'all probably think I'm silly for even mentioning this, but over on page 2, at the bottom there, Scott, where you list general information and they're labeled A, B, C, D.
Yes, sir.
It just bothers me that Chattanooga 2.0 is mentioned first. I mean, our strategic plan, our future ready, our Focus 5, so much more important than what Chattanooga 2.0 did. And again, maybe I'm being silly here, and if I am, I'm sorry, but that just bothers me that that's listed
It's
as
not
priority A.
Well, it's not listed in order of importance, Mr. Smith. It's issued in chronology. It's chronological.
Well, I recognize that, but it just still bothers me.
Hey, I just want to point out that on page 3, it says Dr. Johnson became the director of Hamilton County Schools on July 17th, 2021.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It was
This
chronological.
is really short term.
Lasted a day. A month.
Yeah, that ruined his future.
It probably, is that actually the day that he resigned?
Yeah, it was.
Did he resign like to the date, like on his anniversary?
That's the date that the board voted to accept it. So I mean, I didn't dream up that date. I just had the wrong one there.
Right.
That
And
was
Scott,
that was the date of his initial
one
contract.
more there. The next sentence took the board's strategic plan and made it more specific, developing future ready. I believe that's 2023.
I think it was 2021 at first, wasn't it? And then it became 2023? Was it? Okay. All right, thank you.
All right.
So, Mr. Smith, just so that you know, when I read this, I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, why are we mentioning Chattanooga 2.0 first?
So
So I
maybe-
get it. I mean, for me, you know, but
Thank
I,
you,
I
Mark.
felt the same way. Like, it just caught me off guard that we start our story by mentioning
Thank you,
Chattanooga
Marco,
2.0.
so I don't feel so silly.
Yeah,
after all.
exactly. I was with you.
I can actually take that, change that heading and just make it the strategic plan of the Hamilton County
Sure.
schools. But leave the same content in there, but make it, make the focus of the board. I think that's fair.
All right. So let's
So
let's
we're
talk.
up for the question.
Well, let's talk about these dates. We gotta get these dates for
Okay.
sure. I know we said the week of, so let's if you guys are okay with the week of the 6th for us to review, and then as Mr. Bennett said, if there's an opportunity or a need to pare down to whoever it is we want to interview, that can happen on that night, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that would be the week of the 6th. So I generally, just in my mind, work off of a Thursday night just because we meet on Thursday nights. If the 9th works for everyone, that'd be great. If not,
I'm good with Thursday to Thursday to Thursday.
okay. Any
So-
objection to that? And I'm
September
speaking
9th.
without talking to him.
And I could say the finalists selected by the board, because I don't want the interviews to coincide with a board meeting. 'Cause we might have 13 people
Correct.
sharing.
Correct.
But the finalist really, that can coincide. I mean, I don't think it matches.
Well, if we work, we're working off the week of the 20th. The board meeting in September, the third Thursday is the 16th. So we won't have a problem with that.
So
No,
that
but I
would
was gonna
be,
say-
that would be when the finalists are selected, the
Correct.
16th?
We would,
That's what I'm saying, that I have no problem with the finalists selecting on a board meeting and just, yeah.
well, but if we're combining 4 and 5, which is
I
what,
wouldn't combine, that's what.
okay.
Do 1 week, then the next week, to do the interviews, and then we pick the finalist as part of the board agenda. I'm wondering if that works out with our dates.
Saying that's on the agenda, that, too.
Or as a special session after the agenda, either one, but.
I mean, kind of what I had written down was initial review by the board August 26th, interviews the 2nd, and then the 16th, the finalist. That was kind of what I had jotted down prior to the meeting. Is that kind of, it's a
I
little
would
quick.
push it.
Yeah.
I would do, in it, because I want to read those, and that's going to take me more than 2 days.
Yeah.
So I would push it to September 2nd, the initial review, to September 9th, the interviews, and 16th, we vote on the finalist.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it.
Finalist, it's not the finalist, that's.
The
multiple finalists.
finalist of this.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it'd be great if we had the
Okay, so say,
finalists by
'cause no,
September.
No, I mean, the two.
Yeah.
You're gonna have two contracts.
Yeah.
Look at two.
Possibly.
Possibly.
Possible.
What about that? Thoughts on that?
2nd, 9th, and 16th.
2nd, 9, and 16.
I like it.
I'm good.
I like it.
So not September the 6th, but September the 2nd, is that what, he said?
September the 2nd?
2, 9, and 16.
September 9th, 2nd, 9th, and 16th.
All right. You got that, Mr. Bennett?
I do.
Okay. And then we're still a go for October the 1st then.
I gave them 2 weeks.
And if the firm is selected on the 16th, there's no reason that I mean, they're going to know the minute we do it because we live stream.
Starts 27th, or
I mean, they're gonna start kicking it,
17th.
17th.
and I'll bet you a jelly donut that probably some of these people are already talking to candidates.
They're listening right now.
I'm sure King Carrick is. I'm sure King Carrick is.
I put myself in some of those firms' shoes, and I don't know that you can move that quickly, but
So-
if you guys have more experience than I do,
I think it's aggressive.
I think it's asking them, I mean, but you have more experience. I want, give me a couple of weeks to wrap up this thing and go to the next thing. So I'm okay still with an October 1st. And perhaps of your three-legged stool, where I don't feel, I mean, I want us to, I like the January 1st election of candidate, but I think we've got a good team in place, and we have, so I don't just feel like we've got this urgency that, tomorrow we've got to get all this done. We've got time. So I'd still stick to an October 1st, personally, in my view.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
I guess it's my age. But I just don't see, I don't like playing games. I never have liked playing games. I don't like silliness. I don't like playing games with other people's time. To me, it's almost childish. I think that this board knows, everybody kind of tiptoes around it and don't want to say what they want to say. But I think that this board knows that there are at least one candidate, some people think maybe two, internal candidates. I really don't know why we have to do all of this. Maybe it's to satisfy, I'm not real sure what, to vet someone who's worked in the school system for years and years. If they're not already vetted, shame on us. I mean, but they've been working one-on-one with children for years. Anyone in the central office has. And to think that we have to hire an outside firm to come in and vet them, I mean, shouldn't they have already been vetted by now? I guess I just don't understand why we feel like we have to play a game just because it's the game that's played. I've been in this, I call it the superintendent shuffle. It's a game that's played all across the United States. That whenever there's a superintendent job, there's a certain number of people that get out and apply for, no matter if it's in Timbuktu or whatever. It's just wherever it is where they want to go. So, like I say, if we know that there are candidates internally, I'm not real sure that anyone can vet them any better than we already have. If there's something there, surely by goodness we would have known it by now. I'm just not real sure why we feel like we really have to do this. I guess this has been my problem all along. To spend thousands of dollars to do something that really might not even be necessary. That's just my feelings about it. Like I say, I just want to get things done, and maybe that's because I don't have much longer. I don't have as long in front of me as I used to, and I just don't like wasting time. And I don't like wasting kids' time, and I don't like wasting anybody's time. If there's no sense to play games, if there's somebody that we know that we want, why don't we just go ahead and figure out if somebody has enough support to get 5 votes, and if they do, why don't we go ahead and do this? I mean, I think probably even TSBA is looking at us thinking, if they have an internal candidate, you don't have to do all of this. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. I mean, of course, I have to go along with the majority of the board, but I just don't really see why we have to do all of this. As firm vetting someone for me that I've known for years and years is not going to mean anything to me. Maybe it is to someone else, but just because they say it's okay doesn't always mean it's okay. But Now, those are just my thoughts. I just don't understand it.
You guys,
One more thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Mr. Bennett, on the contract start date, can we put no later than October 1st?
Absolutely.
Perfect. See?
so,
Is this for the superintendent to start by October 1?
No.
No, no, no,
Okay, I'm
that's
sorry.
the search firm.
I want to make sure I did not miss something. Okay. So I was like, you're out of your mind. Okay.
all right, so we good with dates and edits?
Joe, I just want to go on record to saying Rhonda speaks a lot of wisdom. So I hope we heard what she just said. A lot of wisdom there. Thank you.
All right, I think we're ready, Mrs. Ford.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
No.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, I think that is our business for tonight. We will see each other again in a couple days. Meeting adjourned.